Hi guys, I'm Aussie Villain and I do daily Football Manager content, so if you're not already and that sounds like something you'd like, make sure you are subscribing, ring the bells for notifications, and of course hit thumbs up if you find this video useful. Today it's going to be about tactics, how to set up your team to win, so let's get started. So one of the main parts, if not the main part of Football Manager, is making sure you have a tactic, or setting up the tactics so that you can win. That and probably transfers are the two main things, aren't they? So it's important to try and get things right. Now this is my Chelsea team that I've been playing with through the beta period, and you can see we're training two main tactics, although in truth they're very similar. It's just whether there's a DM or a number 10 in. But if you wanted to set up a new tactic, this little plus sign here, click that, create new tactic, and off you go. So, you know, if you want to do a counter-attacking tactic, you would do all this. You'd set up your formation here. What do we want to go with? Let's go with this one. And confirm, and then that's it. That's your sort of your base tactic setup, and then you can tinker with it from there. So there's a couple of things that you'll want to do. It's going to depend on your team and the best way that you think that you're going to get a result. So this is what I always do. I always think, you know, you want to try and start from the back. So that's your centre backs for the most part. So what you want to do is you want to try and get centre backs. If you're a good team, you know, Chelsea obviously big team, lots of money to spend, so you can look to try and get your all-round defenders. But you want to try and have, I always think, jumping reach is more important than pace. Now the reason I say that, you can sit a line deep to protect from. So if you go in here, you can sit deep. And that means that you can have the slowest defender in the world, but if there's no space in behind, if the game's taking place in front of him, then the lack of pace really doesn't matter. You can cover for it. But if you have a good defender, then yes, you can play a higher line, a quick defender, I should say. And if they play a ball at the top, quick enough to get back and cover it. But when it comes to defending corners, set pieces, things like that, you can't hide a lack of ability to jump. So that's why I always say, ideally, you want both, but I always think jumping reach is more important and than pace for that particular reason. And of course, if you have a defender that has a good jumping reach, they're not a bad weapon from the other end. When you have a corner or a set piece of some description, they can go and get on the other end of things and bang in a few goals as well. So if that's the case, if you've got a deeper line because you've got your centre back in there, then you sort of build your tactic from that. So you're sitting deeper. Chances are other teams are going to be coming onto you more. You might want to play a low block as well. This is going to depend on work rate of your players and things like that as well, or what the opposition is like at the same time. So you're probably, sitting deep, are going to have a lot of room in behind to play with. So then you're probably going to be looking to get your pace up front. Your strikers, your wide players, however it is you want to play, you probably want to try and get some pace up there. Now, I'm not necessarily playing with a deep line, so it's not as important for me. But yeah, if you do that, then you want to go here. You want to pass the ball into space so that you're sort of turning their defense around to attack. You probably will want to play maybe at a higher tempo. You probably won't want to work the ball into the box. And you might want to be a little bit more direct. You might want to even hit early crosses in if you've got a pacey striker that's not as good in the air. You want to get it in as early as possible so the defense isn't sort of set and waiting for the cross to come in. Whip crosses or low crosses in that case, if you've got an attacker that's not the greatest in the air. If you do have a big lump of a lad up there, float the cross in, let him get underneath it, bully everybody else off, and put the header on goal. So yeah, that is, again, depends on how it is you want to play. There's nothing else here. If you're late in the game and you want to try and close things down, then you want to obviously lower the tempo down. You want to basically do everything that you've done, or undo everything there. Waste time and play for set pieces. The reason you want to play for set pieces, great way to waste time, isn't it? So yeah, that's why you want to do that. And typically you want to be more disciplined as well, so that players are sort of just sticking to what you're asking them to do, not roaming out of position. Now, if you're playing a team that is considerably better than you as well, again, you might want to just be more disciplined, and that's about the way that they go about things. And then be more expressive. If you're expecting to dominate the game, then you probably, again, you want the players to be expressive and move around and sort of be like a more of a Pep Guardiola type side. Dribble less, dribble more. That's just up to you. Yeah, depends on the players you've got. If you've got a team of good dribblers, then run at the defense more. If they've got a lot of bookings in their back line, maybe tell them to run at them as well. Try and induce fouls and red cards. But otherwise, it just depends on the quality of the player that you have on the ball. Now, in transition, the way that I like to do it is, I always think you want to counter press and then counter attack. You always want to have, I think, a threat on the break. and distribute quickly is part of counter-attacking in my mind. You know, your goalkeeper gets it out quickly. Now, depending on how you want to play, though, if you're not playing with ball-playing centre-backs, then you're not going to want to do this. You're probably better off, and if you are looking to attack early, either distribute it to the flanks, get the ball out wide, get them, you know, turning around and chasing, or go straight over the defense. Again, if you've got a really quick defender, just Tony Pulis it straight over the top and let them run onto it. But that can be very much kick the ball, they pick it up, and then they come back at you. So that tends to be a little bit more high risk, I think, but it could be a way to make them sit back and not put you under pressure. If you see that, for example, your goalkeeper's got the ball and they've got two defenders sort of basically standing on the edge of the penalty area, stopping you from playing the ball out, just boot it over their head, make them run back. So that might be a way to stop that for you. But yeah, typically I think distribute to the flank. If you've got a good target man, that could be useful, or if you've got a playmaker there, but be wary if you're distributing to the playmaker or even anywhere. If the opposition look like they're sort of set up waiting for it, you might just need to change it. But yeah, as I say, if you've got the big lumps at the back, probably want to avoid playing short to them. And then out of possession, again, that does just come back to how it is what you've got in terms of a defensive line. If you want to push up, if you want to sit back a little bit deeper. Now, one thing I will go through in a minute is an opposition scouting report to give you an idea of the best way to play against them. But yeah, for now we'll just sort of keep it relatively simple. Now, I always think you want to stop crosses. To be honest, why would you want to invite a cross in? The reason you'd want to do it is that if you are trapping them outside like this, and you've got a dominant centre back, your centre backs are better than their forward in the air, then you might want to invite them in, let them cross it in, and just know that your centre backs are going to head the ball away. I still don't want that ball coming into the box, if I'm honest, but that's just me. Trap inside, outside. Now, the way that I would do this is I would do the opposite of what they want. If they're playing with inside forwards and inverted wingers, then I'd trap them outside because they want to come in. Whereas if they are playing with out-and-out wingers, then I'd try and force them inside because they want to get down the outside of you. So I just basically do what they don't want me to do. Get stuck in, don't stay on your feet. Get stuck in. I've always found it just leads to a lot of bookings, a lot of fouls, a lot of free kicks. I'm really not a fan of it. Unless the game's going, you just got to try and break up play somehow if you're getting dominated. Stay on feet. I've typically used that more, to be honest. But just the last sort of couple of FMs, I've just moved away to not having any specific instruction there. But stay on feet will definitely result in less yellow cards. What you might find, though, is maybe the tackling isn't the best, and you maybe just play around with it and get to know your players as to what is the best instruction for them personally. So this would then bring us on to mentality, just whatever it is you want to do. I always like to attack. That's just me, but that's going to come down to you and your players and how you like to play as well. Now, individual instructions is something that is very, very important. Now, what I always think is you want to tailor these to the individual player that you have. Now, some positions are just, it's hard-coded. This is what they do or don't do. But if you've got, so this is Lavia, who is a very, very good midfielder. Absolutely loving him to pieces right now. But he's a good passer of the ball. He's got decent vision. So I would say take more risks. I'd have no problem with him sort of taking more risks with his passing. Whereas, let's have a look here for dribbling. He could dribble. If you had somebody who had a bad dribbling stat, then you wouldn't want to encourage them to dribble. And shoot less often. Now, his long shot is okay. I think I'd prefer him to be passing the ball than shooting, and so I would probably agree. Well, yeah, shoot less often is a good idea, I think, for him. But if you've got someone with long shots of sort of 17, 18, 19, you probably just want them to just keep having goes. So, yeah, that's very much depends on the player, I think, more so than the position. I always think it depends more on the player. Now, these things when team has the ball. Do you want to get further forward or do you want to stay wider? Now, if you find yourself, you have a player in midfield that isn't actually able to get themselves on the ball during the game, maybe you want them to just drift that little bit wider and try and get them involved in the game that way. It's a very useful thing to do, and often, to be honest, I forget that I have the option to do that. So, yeah, these things are maybe things you want to play around with more when you're in the game, perhaps more so than whilst you are setting the team up beforehand. And when player has the ball, do you want them to run wide with the ball? Depends on the player. What I would suggest is set this up before the game to suit your player's strength. So you've got them playing to their best, their best game. And then if you want to play around with these things during the game because it's not going to plan, that's when I would play around with individual playing instructions mid-game. But for the setup initially, just try and make your player play to their strengths as much as possible. So to give you an idea, let's have a look at another guy here as a winger. We've got a little bit more ability here to be able to change things. Now, wingers are going to be asked to dribble. Now, if we were to put him on support, I think, no, a winger is always going to dribble more. So that's just hard-coded in. Get further forward, stay wide. Now, you could, if you were playing him instead of a winger as, say, an inside forward, you would then have the option to, say, stay wider or sit narrower. You could tell him to hold the ball up. This is where you start to get different options coming in. Now, the one thing I did want to say, too, is while we're on wingers, I always like to, if I'm coming up against a team that has fullbacks and wingers, so whether it's a 4-4-2 or like a 4-3-3, whatever it might be, I always like my wingers, or my wide players, or if I've got a situation where I've got two strikers, then I will do so with my strikers, is having them mark up against the opposition fullback or wingback if they're playing wingbacks and wingers, as you get sometimes. The reason I like to do this is just to try and avoid overlaps so that my fullback doesn't get overwhelmed. So my left winger will mark the right back, my right winger will mark their left back. I'm just looking for a token effort just to track them back so that the fullback can concentrate on the winger, and then the out winger is sort of just making sure that their fullback isn't open for an overlap. So yeah, that's one instruction that I do find is quite helpful. You will get players that just can't be bothered, and it'll drive you crazy because you've told them to go track back. But yeah, I just look for a token effort just to try and make life a little bit more difficult for them. Now, I'll do a separate tutorial on set pieces because it has been sort of tweaked a little bit for this version of the game. Opposition instructions, I usually just like to let my assistant do it. I just try to make sure I have an assistant that is tactically aware, tactical knowledge is decent. But what you want to do, if you do want to do it for yourself, is just try and make sure wingers, if they've got a strong right foot, then show them onto their left foot. If you've got a player that's good creatively on the ball, if they have sort of say something like bad composure, then go and close them down. If their bravery is down, then go and get stuck in on them so they don't want to play. Just things like that. Just try and exploit any weaknesses and make it difficult for them to play. But for the most part, I find that your assistant manager will typically do a fairly good job of doing that. So yeah, you can see here trigger press, tackling. So if you've got a midfielder, playmaker or something that doesn't like or has low bravery, just go in hard, make it annoying for them so they don't want to play. Show onto weaker foot. You could probably just go down, to be honest, the whole team will put show onto weaker foot. But if you've got a winger that's playing wide left, which is this side, playing wide left, and you're trying to show them, your match tactic is to show them to the outside, then you want to show them to the left foot. If you're trying to show them inside, you want to show them onto their right foot. So you can kind of use this to play into your actual overall tactic as well. Now, just I think I wanted to show you for this is opposition scouting reports, and up here we had opposition reports. They're very, very similar. This is sort of more data hub, and the scouting report is more sort of scouting. So if you go here, click full report. So they're going to look to control possession. This is Tottenham, I think, or is it Brighton? Who we're looking at here? It doesn't really matter who we're looking at because it's Brighton, I think. So they're going to try and control possession, and you can see there what they're trying to do from a set piece. Again, we'll do a separate tutorial on that. Now, someone's looking to control possession against me. Typically, I'm going to want to try and play a higher line and not give them time to control possession, basically put them under a lot of pressure. But what might conflict that, if we go here to the analysis report, scoring goals, how do they score their goals? So a lot of the 6 of their assists from the last, let's see how many games this is, recent games anyway, 20 matches it looks like, have come from this sort of midfield place, let's say, and 5 of their assists have been through balls. Now I always think it doesn't really matter where the goal came from necessarily, because it's too late at that point. It could just be a tap in and the goals actually come before that. The assist, I think, stopping the assist is more important than stopping the goal, because if there's no assist, there's no goal. So given that, and that they're playing, that their goals come from through balls, then what I would probably want to do in this case is maybe not play such a high line. No, this one. Play such a high line because I don't want them to have that space to play a through ball into. But equally, if they're trying to control possession, then I don't want them to just have control of possession. So I will want to try again. Play the high press, easy for you to say, and make sure that they're not just being able to do whatever they want with the ball when they have it. Now, if you are playing against somebody who is maybe more of a direct team or a counter-attacking team, then it might well be you still want to play with a deep line, but a low block. Let them have it here because they're not looking to keep possession there. They're trying to just lump it forward anyway, and you'll have the players back there to then be able to sort of clean it up. Or, you know, if you find yourself later in the game, you may need to go and press them again anyway. Or it could be that they're not a good team in possession anyway. If you put pressure on them, then they'll give it away. So it's going to come down to, again, your quality of your players, quality of their players, and what is the best way for you to play to your strengths but exploit their weaknesses. Now, speaking of exploiting weaknesses, if we go back to the scouting report here, or the, yes, this is the scouting report, the analysis report anyway, we can go and have a look at where they can see goals from. And again, lots from through balls, 2 from opposition mistakes. That's a fairly high percentage. So that suggests if you put them under pressure, that they'll give you possession and you'll be a good, decent chance of scoring. So it might be, in this case, that we want to maybe pass into space if they concede from through balls. Pass it into the space behind the defense. That's a through ball, isn't it? Put pressure on them, work on corners, and you know they can see goals from a fairly wide range of different areas. So that could be there's no specific weakness. Could be there's a lot of weaknesses, though. The number of goals they conceded would suggest that there's no specific weakness. They're a good team, but you know they've got Ange Postecoglou these days, don't they, Tottenham? So that would be a good team. But yeah, so that's sort of the way you can help build a game plan off of what they've done in the past, so you can see their weaknesses, their strengths, try and bring everything together to get a match-winning tactic together. Now, the difference between the opposition report, again, you can see here, it's going to take you back to this particular screen. The one thing, I don't typically look too much into this, but you can get some useful thing. You can see here the different key findings on them, so that it'll give you a clue as to who you want to stop as well. But if you go to where was it? If you go to here, one thing that can be useful is last match passes. You get an idea of where they like to pass the ball. So it could be they like to pass out from the back. You can see goalkeeper to number 5 here, who is Dunk. So this is definitely Brighton then, isn't it? That's a highway, isn't it? So if you can maybe stand someone on Dunk, take that away from them, then that could be useful. Equally, they do go to Webster as well. But this would tell you maybe if you go and stick guys on each of their centre backs, it's going to stop them passing out from that way. And it might be a situation, and you can see here that then they go out to another wider area. So you might want to go and stick 2 players, whether it's a striker and number 10 in my case, standing here. Go and stick your wide players out here so that they can't. It takes away that avenue of attack for them, and then see what they do from there. So you can get a few clues from here as to what you can do to try and stop them playing the way that they want to play. But anyway, hopefully all that has been of some use to you. If it has been useful, make sure you hit thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and yeah, I look forward to seeing you, if not in the next tutorial, then in some Let's Plays as well. Take care.